during the first two Super Bowl wins, and even during the time that they, under Jim Fossil, they got to a Super Bowl and didn't win, the Giants were competitive. And segues nicely into what we have to mention, too, the passing of Dan Reeves, because that was part of that era where the Giants were, mediocre at worst. Okay, Dave Brown, we're not talking about, if they had an off year, they'd bounce back the following year. And Reeves' tenure with the Giants was, I guess the best way to describe it, was uneventful because he had Dave Brown. But at the very least, it wasn't a disaster. Okay, and Reeves, of course, an accomplished coach with Denver and of course, accomplished player in Dallas. And there's a great picture that's been circulating social media of a uniformed Reeves and Ditka and Tom Landry all talking to each other. And, hey, two Giant employees. That's great.
True. Yeah, this Giants team is a disaster. And it's not even worth yelling about just because they're that bad. They're the only team that scored 10 points or fewer in the first half of every game this season. Every game this season. And I think they're the first team to do this since the 2002 Cowboys. They're setting a lot of historical stats this week, and none of them are any good.
And yes, we have to touch on it. We'll get it out of the way because, of course, we have much more interesting NFL topics to talk about, including a game that's going on right now. And the Minnesota Vikings and, hold on, let me get the current score here. Green Bay Packers is 30-10 right now with 12:05. Is that in the fourth?
Yep.
Okay. So Packers doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they were, but again, we do have to talk about it. So let's do it. Let's get it out of the way. The New York Giants, they went to Chicago to take on the Bears, who aren't that great to begin with. They were 5-10 going in. They have won 3 straight games now versus the Giants. 29-3 the final. And where do you begin? With a Giants fumble is where you begin on the first play. 2 plays, fumble. And 2 plays later, touchdown. And Chicago never looked back the rest of the way.
Yeah, it was bad from the opening snap. And this is an exaggeration. There's no quarterback in the league worse than Mike Glennon is right now. And it's a lot when you look at guys like David Mills, who had a good game last week, or Zach Wilson, who's starting to step it up for the Jets. Or, well, really, arguably the only player who's worse is Jake Fromm, who got no playtime in today's contest, despite this one being over relatively quickly. But Mike Glennon threw for a total of negative 10 yards. That's the lowest any team has had in passing yards since the Chargers, minus 19 back in 98. He had 2 picks, 2 fumbles, and a QB rating of 5. And even if you don't put a lot of stock in that, a QB rating of 5 is... You literally could have a better QB rating just snapping the ball and spiking it on the ground.
Oh, my God. I mean, look, if you're throwing for negative yardage, you might as well be throwing the ball backwards. Rugby style.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
To be fair, that's essentially what the Giants ended up doing towards the end, because they had Saquon Barkley take snaps at the quarterback spot. They relied on the Wildcat several times, and that was really the only life the Giants showed offensively. He had 102 yards on 21 carries. His first 100-yard game this year. I don't really know if it means much outside of trade value if the Giants choose to trade him. I don't know how much trade value anyone on this team has. If there's anyone that has value on this team, it's Patrick Graham, defense coordinator. And I'm sure he's just waiting for that contract to expire so he can get out of this abysmal franchise, which has no indications is getting any better following whatever Joe Judge was saying in the post-game presser.
Well, at some point, you might as well just say nothing. Okay? So you saw the game. I've got nothing to say.
Even if you didn't, you didn't miss much. Bears had 249 yards. They had 3 yards per play.
I mean, I have an excuse. I was busy calling the women's basketball game here at Stony Brook. But yes, it was merciful
There was
because
one. Yeah, go ahead.
let's face it here. Again, well-known statistic because they've been beating it to death all year long. The Giants are 22-58 since 2017, tied for the worst record in the NFL with the Jets.
Yep. And at least for the Jets, for the past couple weeks, which is more than whatever the heck the Giants are doing. They're tanking. They sure know how to tank. That's about the only thing they can do well.
Well, like I said, 29-3. The Bears, they're pretty much out of it too, but they are, well, let's just wait for a hasty end to the season. The Jets, on the other hand, it's almost like Lucy and Charlie Brown. Okay? Put the football down, she pulls it away. Well, the Jets led for a good portion of this game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then Tom Brady and company decided to wake up in the fourth quarter. They win it 28-24. Tampa Bay improves to 12-4. The Jets dropped to 4-12, which means mission accomplished. But dangling that carrot, and again, everybody, you see Jet fans saying, we're not supposed to win this game. Don't win it. But on the other hand, if you're taking a lead into the third quarter, past the third quarter against Tom Brady, you forget all about that. You say, let's win this thing because we want to stick it to Tom Brady.
Yeah, all those players on the field, they're not looking at what the standings are or what the draft position is. They're looking to win. And, to me, this isn't a team on the field that let each other down, that they cost themselves the game. If anything, this was a big coaching blunder, and specifically on Mike LaFleur and Robert Saleh, where even though they called a nice game, you're 4th and 2, and your running game is working wonders for your squad. 150 yards on the ground out of their 374 total yards. You don't let your quarterback take the gun 4 and 2 against one of the best defensive lines, arguably the best defensive line in the league. That's just asking for trouble. And it's a miracle Wilson didn't get hurt when he got stuffed at the line. That's one where if you're going to run it, you give it to those backs because they did some work in today's contest. And that's something I think as a team going forward is definitely got to be shaken up because honestly, with the coaching the past few weeks, especially in a lot of those losses, it's left a lot to be desired. But the coaching last week where they managed to win, I thought it spoke volumes where they won without Salah and he comes back and he loses.
Yeah, I'm wondering if ownership is thinking the same way. By the way, we're at the top of the hour. It is 11 o'clock and 52 seconds. You're listening to WUSB Stony Brook, the sports section. Matt Mankiewich, Ken Fermin, here until midnight. Number to call if you want to join in the conversation, 631-632-9872. That is 631-632-WUSB. We'll get you on. But
yeah, please call us because I want to talk about, I want to hear your thoughts on Antonio Brown.
Oh, boy.
His masterpiece on the field today.
Basically, it was take this job and shove it. And but yes, we'll talk about that because there seems to be, according to the Twitterverse, a little bit more to that than meets the eye. But yes, you have to be in a maelstrom of emotions if you're a Jet fan because you had this game after 3 quarters and. Or maybe the Buccaneers were just toying with the Jets. However you want to present the argument, the game was winnable. And at least if you're a Jet fan, there's an up. Okay, we were just talking about a zombie program with the New York Giants because there doesn't seem to be an upside anywhere. You don't see, an emerging star anywhere. You don't see, offense letting down the defense, and the defense is good, like it was back in the 70s. Whatever. This team, this franchise, is dysfunctional to the core. And as we've been saying, there doesn't seem to be a rescue because nobody in the league seems to care. And, it's like the league is just passing them by. Yeah. To a degree, fantasy sports number one plays a role in that, and gambling definitely does.
Well, yeah, and also just the expansion of the league. Obviously, there's a lot more teams involved, a lot more teams to focus on. So, some of those, teams like the Giants 20, 30 years ago, obviously less valuable when there's other markets that are being conquered right now that are trending upwards, like Kansas City, like Tampa Bay, etc. And for the Giants team too, it's important for the league. Yes, it'd be great, I'm sure, for them on the league side, but ultimately it's up to ownership to make this squad good. And this ownership has let them team time and time and time again, and they have no indication that they plan on making things any better by retaining the people there now, like a Chris Mara, Abrams, Gettleman, Joe Judge, and some of these players that have really been struggling, like the quarterbacks, like this terrible offensive line. It's ultimately, it all falls down to ownership, and they don't care enough to make changes. Unlike the Jets, they made a lot of changes, and a lot of them gone bad. But at least for a team that's 4-11 right now and has 2 top 10 picks, they've still put down fight against the defending champs, and they made Tampa work for that win and broke the psyche of one Antonio Brown, which I'm not sure how much of a psyche he had left entering today.
Well, yeah, he went to take this job in shove-it mode because it was in the middle of the game when they were losing and when the Jets were making Tampa Bay look like a bunch of fools, and that was true. But you're in a situation where you're only in the first half, and you're basically playing FBS versus FCS, where you give them a little bit of slack in the first half, and you stomp on them in the second half. So you have to ask yourself, or ask him, what motivates this? He rips off his jersey, his shoulder pads, gets down to bare top, and just walks off the field, and the Buccaneers are saying he ain't coming back. But some people are saying that a couple of hits that he took, or a series of hits over his career, may have given him a little bit of a bipolar disorder. They say Terrell Owens had that. It was undiagnosed until after he retired.
Well, that's possible, but this man has had an accredited ego problem dating back to college. Remember, he got kicked out of FIU because he got in a fight with a security officer, unprompted, just decided to fight one, and ended up getting kicked out there. It's a miracle he managed to get drafted, where he did, and he had a great career. But even as a Steeler, he's had loads of character issues, which ultimately accumulated with him. Obviously, first trying to get traded to the Bills, then he shut that down. Then getting traded to Vegas, where he had many issues there in such a short amount of time, whether it was freezing his feet or not wanting to wear helmets, and causing enough of a fuss that he got released from there. I mean, this dude is a whole bag of issues. And while I don't really feel bad for the Bucs one bit, I am amazed at what I saw. It's something I never could have imagined I would have seen on the field by anyone.
Yeah, it's so bizarre that that's what people are thinking. It's got to be some kind of mental health thing because it was so nuts. And with all that we're learning the hard way, literally, about head injuries and what people and all the various domestic issues that players have as a result of the head
including
injuries.
Antonio Brown.
Yeah. But here we go. So what do you do? I mean, obviously, the Buccaneers can't roll them out there next week. Okay.
No, they're not. Bruce Arians already in the post-game said he's done.
Yeah.
And they gave Brown a pass once already when he faked his vaccination card. I don't know why they gave him a pass.
Same reason they gave Aaron Rodgers one, because he was still doing stuff for the team.
That's true, but at least in that scenario, though, it was Rodgers that wants out, and the team said no way. In the other scenario, Arians didn't want Brown to join in the first place, and it was Brady and ownership, and ultimately led to him having a big game in the Super Bowl, getting a ring. But once again, Brown putting himself in a really dumb situation, and honestly, this man just doesn't deserve to play in the NFL again. He's got a lot of talent, but his ego and his attitude is too big, I think, for any team to manage. And you got Tom Brady leading you, arguably the best leader in the NFL, and he can't control you for more than a season and a half. There's just no point in him getting signed anywhere.
It was the late, great John Madden who coined the term "just win, baby," and he had some head cases on that team. Mm-hmm. Ken Stabler, who himself was a bit of a crazy guy, once said it was John Matuzak who knocked on his door one day, and he said, "Snake, you got a gun?" And it's like, "What do you need a gun for?" "I just need a gun. Where can I get a gun?" I said, "I don't know." He said to this day, I don't know why he needed it or whether he got it or what, and I still don't want to know. And this is close to 50 years ago this happened. But that's how crazy those Raider teams were. And essentially, Al Davis's philosophy is to take these guys who were considered too, off the wall for standard NFL teams and put them together, put a guy like Madden in charge, and he was the perfect guy for it, where he just said, just win, baby, and just roll the ball out there and let the veterans do the work, essentially. And he's not the only coach that had that philosophy. Slightly different philosophy with Vince Lombardi and George Allen, these guys who played veterans and said basically the veterans already know what they're doing and they make fewer mistakes, fewer penalties, they execute plays well, and Lombardi broke no new ground. Basically, they executed better than everybody else did, which is why those teams won. But the Raiders figured out a formula, and the formula was that they kind of policed each other. That if a guy like this was screwing up, that it would be pressure from the players that got him back on the straight and narrow. I mean, look at Dennis Rodman, for example, with Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson cut him a huge berth because he knew that when the time came, Rodman would be there playing his game. And Jordan felt the same way, and all the others did too. They figured out a way to work him in. But I don't know how many solutions they have left in this case. And after such a dramatic display like that, right, maybe they say, he's going to go into a program, he's going to go for evaluation, he's going to go see some therapists, et cetera, et cetera. But do that through the off season, and if you like what you see, bring him back. But right now, he's played his last game for the season.
And honestly, to me, it feels like his last of his career. And again, as good as he is, I don't know how you as a coach look at that and think you can have that guy on your team. I know it's happened once or twice already, considering everything that's already in the background of Antonio Brown. But now you have, a guy who literally quit in front of his team during the middle of a game over a bad stretch. This is a guy who, mind you, if he played next week, would have likely made $1 million extra in contract incentives for catches, touchdowns, yardage.
Another reason they think he's nuts.
Yeah, and he still couldn't control himself, even with all of that on the line. I mean, this is a dude who he doesn't care. He is erratic and has been a problem for his teammates, his coaches, his locker rooms for a long time. This goes back to Pittsburgh. This goes back to Vegas. This goes back to his college games, as I said, at FIU. This dude, to me, football, he shouldn't be a guy who playing football. He, as you said, is someone who probably needs help or needs to, at the very least, get a grip on his life and mentality and change it up, because he is acting extremely irresponsibly and is setting a real bad example. Honestly, for everyone watching, that the fact that something like that could happen in today's game.
Okay, so in something less crazy, well, maybe we'll stick with crazy, because what the Titans did to the Dolphins today. 34-3, Titans at home, and the Dolphins, they're at 8-8 now. Their, of course, playoff chances have been, greatly lessened. But the Titans clinched the AFC South for the second straight season and left no doubt in this one.
Yeah, as you said, huge blow for the Dolphins. They really needed it, but it was cold, it was wet weather, and they just couldn't adjust to those bad temperatures.
But how do you score 34 points on the other side in those conditions?
Yeah, a big reason for that was the ground game. Tua fumbled 3 times, lost one, he threw a pick, and his defense was real bad. And when you got a rushing attack like Tennessee, where they're always dangerous. Yeah, no Derrick Henry, but they still got 198 yards. Deonta Foreman had 132.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And that was a difference maker offensively. And just, they controlled the tempo from the start. and you got a struggling young quarterback on the opposite end, so you're just able to pressure him all day because you can't move too far when you got wet weather.
Well, not only that, Dontrell Hilliard only 45 yards, but on 8 carries, that's 5.6 per carry.
Yeah.
So you got two guys averaging, over 5 yards a carry. Ryan Tannehill didn't have a lot of work to do, 13 for 18, 120 yards, but 2 TDs and no interceptions, which is basically a quarterback doing his job. And so the Titans now have 11-plus wins in 2 straight seasons for the first time since 2002-2003.
With the other crazy scenario happening today, they actually lead in the AFC. They're currently in the top spot at 11-5. And I think you got to tip your hat to Mike Vrabel and his team. Obviously, a couple seasons ago, taking a huge risk having Ryan Tannehill on the squad after his inconsistent play in Miami. And Tannehill's been balling out since game 1 with the Titans. Derrick Henry being a big reason why they found so much success, the best running back in the game today when healthy, obviously. And just the defense, I thought, really stepping up these past couple weeks, as well as the running game continuing to be dominant, even with Henry out. Obviously, you got great receivers like A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, obviously, coming in over the offseason. So this is a very talented Titan squad. And they had trouble consistency because you don't really know what Titan squad you're going to get week in and week out. But if they're able to perform like they did today, and you get this Titan squad in the playoffs, they could be legitimate. I think they are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. They may not be top Super Bowl contenders at the moment, but they are definitely in the discussion.
I love these little factoids that they put out with every game summary. The Titans have won back-to-back division titles for the first time since the 1960-62 Houston Oilers won 3 straight AFL East titles the first 3 years of the league. Wow. Okay, we're talking 60-plus years ago. That's
honestly crazy when you think about the talent that's been on some of these Titan squads, like Eric McNair, Vince Young as well, Chris Johnson. And you think of that, and they couldn't wrap up consecutive division titles.
Well, another crazy score right on the heels of it, involving another AFC East team. The New England Patriots, who have had their struggles as of late, got what they needed, a break, by facing the Jacksonville Jaguars and destroying them 50-10, which locked down a playoff berth.
Yeah, well earned for New England. Rough start to the season, won 7 straight before going on a 2-game skid entering today, but they ended that in resounding fashion. Just dominated Jacksonville. And when you're a rookie quarterback against Bill Belichick, you got your work cut out for you because you're already, the underdog in that scenario. And Trevor Lawrence had nothing today. That Jaguars offense was locked up by the Patriots defense. 3 interceptions thrown, and the Pats turned all 3 of those picks into touchdowns, which was a big factor in the 50-10 blowout. Mac Jones produced 3 touchdowns of his own.
Yep.
And Patriots, 471 total yards of offense.
4 running TDs. Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris had 2 apiece. Mac Jones, 3 TD passes, and, just complete domination. And a receiving touchdown. Jacoby Myers pulled down 1. Christian Wilkerson pulled down 2. So, a complete end-to-end dominant performance that, again, the Patriots really needed, because now, at least in terms of sheer record, they have clinched a playoff spot.
Yep,
they have not, of course, the AFC East title has yet to be determined, because they share 10-6 records with the Bills. The Bills have the better division record, but only by a game, 4-1 versus 3-2. So, and the Bills, of course, have won 3 in a row, so they have at least kept pace. And the Patriots were coming down to earth, and the Bills were about to overtake them, but they have held on for a tie for first place. So that's good from their point of view. Now, let's take a look at that Bills game.
And that was a Bills game, too, against Atlanta, 29-15 in Buffalo's favor. But at halftime, it was the Falcons leading the game 15-14. Just that defense, or that offense, completely disappeared in the last 2 quarters. They had 96 yards of total offense in the final 30 minutes of play. And the only time they got close to scoring, I remember Matt Ryan, of all people, got called for a taunting penalty. and where when he thought he scored a touchdown. So that pushes it way back, and obviously they're out of scoring position. And it was a bad day for both quarterbacks, I thought. Matt Ryan, Josh Allen definitely played his worst game of the year, but it didn't hurt the Bills because Devin Singletary was able to rush for a pair of touchdowns and 110 yards. Another game where the run game was the difference maker.
3 straight 10-plus win seasons for the Bills for the first time since 1990, 91, 1990 to 93, the boy I love losing Super Bowls era.
Yep.
But yes, it's been that long since the Bills have been that consistently good. Of course, those Bills teams didn't they had a bad New England Patriots team in that division, so they were able to win the division and win those divisions handily. But they are on the rise, and they are the only New York team worth watching right now.
True, very true. And they're great on both ends of the ball. Defensively, they've played terrific. Have some great guys there. And obviously, you're talking about Josh Allen. He had his worst game of the season this week. But even so, he's still the biggest. I think the biggest reason why this team has been so successful. And his jump from a mediocre rookie season to a good sophomore season to a great third and fourth year where he's an MVP caliber player. It's definitely been the difference maker on this Bills team, and has really opened up the offense for a squad where before him they really struggled to find any sort of offense. And this is a team that had Marshawn Lynch on their roster 10, 15 years ago. Couldn't do much with him.
Well, no doubt it's his versatility. 81 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So statistically, you take a look at that sheet there, and you don't think Allen had that great a day. You don't know why the Bills won so handily, and there were obviously other reasons. But he didn't. Again, in a situation like that, you don't want your quarterback to kill you, and he didn't.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, that was a wacky game. Because then in the first quarter, it was 14-2, and you're thinking, all right, this is going to be a blowout for Buffalo, minus the safety. That was a little weird, but so what? And then Falcons scored 13 unanswered, and then the Bills come right back. But yeah, that's kind of how it's been for the Bills. Is more often than not, when their back's against the wall, they're pushing back and they're finding ways to win. So yeah, it's going to be a fun race and wrap up for the race for the top spot in the AFC East next week.
Gives people stuff to watch, especially in the New York market. In the NFC East, could you believe this when you take a look at the standings of the NFC East? And yeah, we know about the Dallas Cowboys. We know how good they've been end to end this season. Yes, they are 11-5. Yes, they are the champions. But take a look at those Eagles. I mean, they only a few weeks ago, they and the Washington football team had identical records, but they've gone in completely opposite directions. The Eagles have won 4 in a row, and they're now 9-7.
Yeah, it is huge. It's been a huge month for the Eagles. Ever since that loss to the Giants, it's been the Eagles that have been trending upwards, and the G-men who have crashed well beneath the earth. It is insane to think that you asked me even a week ago, are the Eagles making the playoffs? I would have called you a maniac. But
you would have picked Washington over them.
Exactly. They are, I believe, only 5 minutes away from officially securing a wild card berth. Because not only did they beat Washington, but the Niners beat the Texans, and the Packers are only minutes away from beating the Vikings, which is crazy to think about, considering this team started 2-5. It's a minute 49, by the way. But it's insane to think that. But really, they have played much better on both ends of the ball, obviously. Jalen Hurts has definitely shined in his time as a starting quarterback for the squad. And even today, he didn't play he didn't have a touchdown, but he still played like that franchise quarterback they wanted him to be when they drafted him. Had a lot of clutch throws on third down and was efficient in some of the key scoring drives for this Philadelphia team.
And Boston Scott comes up with a couple of rushing TDs. Running game, statistically, not great, but there when needed.
He's been a really good back and one of the better backs in the NFC East. Obviously Ezekiel Elliott is king in the NFC East, but Boston Scott has definitely stepped up for the Eagles and is one of the better ones. Obviously Antonio Gibson for Washington comes in my mind next as well, and then you have you have Devontae Booker coming in over Barkley and the rest of the Giants' offense. But yeah, for the Eagles, they're starting to get it trending on offense. Mind you, they traded Zach Ertz earlier this season, so they're doing it without one of their better passing weapons. But defensively as well is where they really stepped up because they were able to force Taylor Heineke, who had a pretty good first half, to go for 10 of 19 and only 77 yards, including a big interception when Washington was in scoring range. They're on the Eagles 20 to be exact, with 30 seconds to go.
And there you go, because that was basically the play that decided the game, 20-16, the final. And, well, all winning streaks end. All losing streaks end. And the longest active winning streak in the NFL belonged to the Kansas City Chiefs, and today it ended. Yeah. Cincinnati Bengals also clinched a division title in the deal, first time since 2015, but 34-31, and this was probably one that you could have spent all day watching and had some fun with, because they were just going toe-to-toe.
Yeah, offensive slugfest, 34-31. And you go back to that game, the first half, it looked like the Chiefs were going to run away with this one. Yeah, they went 3-0 the first drive, 4 straight touchdown drives afterwards. One point in the first half was 28-14, and it sure looked like Kansas City was going to run away with it. But they absolutely got destroyed offensively in the second half. They only had 3 points in the final 2 quarters, and a big reason for that has been the pair of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Now, there was a lot of criticism when Chase got drafted that, how can you not draft an offensive lineman? And what does it matter that you got a great receiver in Jamar Chase when the offensive line isn't going to even hold up? Well, it held up today, holding up the past few weeks as well. And Jamar Chase had a tremendous game. I think he set the record for most receiving yards as a rookie. 266 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Unbelievable.
Seriously, that's video game numbers right there. We're talking about Madden. That's something that I would have believed would happen in a Madden game over the actual NFL. Is Jamar Chase, any receiver, but Jamar Chase, a rookie, coming in with 266 yards.
Well, total
defense
yardage
had no offense.
From the guy on the other end, Joe Burrow, 446 on 30 for 39 passing with 4 TD passes. That, folks, is how you beat Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you can beat him.
Joe Burrow coming off a 500-yard game last week against Baltimore. So following that up with a sub-500-yard performance, totaling 1,000 yards in his last 2 games alone. He, honestly, to me, is entering, it's him, Aaron Rodgers, and Brady. They are the 3 hottest quarterbacks right now entering the NFL postseason, just in terms of their ability to change the game and dictate that offense. Because this is, as I said, 500 and 400-yard offensive performances. And especially for Burrow, he relied heavily on Jamar Chase and was still able to come up with 266 yards, just beating the Chiefs' secondary deep. And it was a huge factor for them getting that win today. As well, also, I think, as the Chiefs beating themselves at the end, where they had a really bad penalty on that last drive, which gave Cincinnati a second chance after they failed the 4th-and-goal play, and which could have led to that game being tied 31-31 and forced an overtime.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the highlight now, but wow.
Yeah, great throw for Burrow, yeah.
But in any case, continuing on, because that ended up with, I mean, we are starting to see the playoff spots get filled little by little, but we do have, which ones, we have to really take a look at.
Yeah, let me just add as well, Jamar Chase converted a 3rd and 27 against the Chiefs secondary. This was when the game was tied at 31, and Burrow just threw it right by the sticks and right on the sideline. Jamar Chase just overpowering the defender. Absolutely incredible grab, and just unbelievable that even happened. But, offensive rookie of the year, bar none, going to Jamar Chase. He has balled out.
Chargers, much-needed win against the Denver Broncos, because remember, that was a logjam only about 3 weeks ago in the AFC West, 34-13, and we're looking at, I'm just looking at some of the stats here, and where are we? Here we go. Justin Herbert, Apparently, he has surpassed Phillip Rivers for most TD passes in a season. He had 2 today. But a team that was sputtering a little bit in the standings out west and opened up some distance because they have improved to 9-7, which puts them in a tie with the Raiders. But it also basically puts the Broncos out of contention with 3 straight losses. But the Chargers still very much in it.
The Broncos had an uphill battle to begin with because they had the backup quarterback. So you kind of excuse the 13-point performance, but they were sloppy all over. They had 3 fourth down opportunities and missed on all of them. It felt like you were watching the Giants missing all those opportunities, as well as a lot of bad penalties, special teams. And these were 2 opposites, where the Chargers had a great overall game. Special teams was great. Herbert was efficient as usual. Austin Eckler, another great running back in this league. He had a great performance. And obviously defensively as well. It's going to be good when you got Derwin James, Joey Bosa playing for that squad. So, yeah, easy win, an important win for the LA Chargers. As you said, they're still in the hunt. Currently slotted as the 7th seed, right above those 9-7 Raiders.
Right. And that's where, of course, if the season ended today. But you take a look at a lot of these teams, and the Steelers, of course, we know what their problems have been, and they're going to be facing the Browns this week. But they play, that's the Monday night game, isn't
Tomorrow,
it?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
It might be Ben's last home game.
Yeah, because, well, believe it when I see it, because he's been rumored to retire several times.
I agree. I kind of hope it is, because he has not looked the same like he has a few years ago.
And I think the Steelers, a team that looked like they were going to cruise to a playoff spot, now looks like they're very much on the bubble. They're on a very thin bubble right now at 7-1. But a couple of teams with nice wins to keep them in contention. And the ones I'm thinking about here are the Raiders. They had a nice win. Hold on, let me just get get down to here. They just edged by the Colts, who, by the way, were looking like they were going to cruise into the playoffs, but now they're in the hunt. They both have a difficult 9-7 records after the 23-20 Raiders win, but it just tells you how tight these last couple of weeks are going to be, and of course, everybody in football likes this because it makes the last couple of weeks so meaningful.
Especially this week where, you got games on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You got, and currently, too, you're looking at these, both conferences in total, you got 20 teams still in the hunt entering the final week of the season, and extend the season at that, as we have the first Week 18 in NFL history. But yeah, you got teams like the Raiders, the Ravens, and the Steelers all on the bubble as of today in the AFC, as well as teams like the Saints and the Vikings still hanging the NFC. And actually, I think the Vikings might have just gotten eliminated with the Packers win today. Just double check that.
So what ended up happening is that the Colts were hanging on to a lead after 3, and the Raiders came up with a touchdown and a punt. And it was Carr to Renfrew for 11 yards on the TD, and then a 33-yard field goal that was successful. But the important thing here is, like I said, is that the teams that are treading water right now have managed to do so, and they didn't sink. But Indianapolis being dealt a tough loss, which doesn't completely knock them out, but again, just makes it a little bit harder.
Yeah, they had a tough game entering this week because we had no clue Andrew Luck was even, or rather, Carson Wentz was even going to play. Remember, he tested positive for COVID, but with the rules changing to where you only need 5 days, he managed to just get in. But the consistency has been an issue, really, for Carson Wentz, both on and off the field, in the sense of, is he available? This is the first time he tested positive for COVID, but he obviously hasn't been vaccinated. And if you're an unvaccinated player, you're likely going to miss your next game whenever it happens during the week. With the exception, I think, might be the Super Bowl, because you got a week break in between your conference final and the Super Bowl game. But for this Colts team as well, consistency, they're still missing it a bit. So we know how good Jonathan Taylor is, but it's the rest of the team that really struggled. And it was kind of a slow burn loss for this squad, as they kept the Raiders alive and let the Raiders get back into this one. And you give Derek Carr a chance, he's gonna bomb it out and he did that over the year and really stepped up that second half.
Okay, 49ers, another team that is in the hunt because they stayed in the hunt by beating on a team that has been out of the hunt for quite some time, the Houston Texans.
Last year, I think.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Talk about long-suffering fans down in Houston, but they did what they had to do, and Trey Lance, 16 for 23, 249 yards, 2 TDs, and a pick.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
You saw progression in him, which I think is big because he's likely to be the quarterback of the future. No Jimmy G today because of that torn ligament in his right thumb. Might come back next week, might come back for playoffs if they're able to clinch a spot. But for Lance, it was important that he was able to improve throughout the game. And he did that because he struggled early on. That first quarter wasn't doing too good. It was under 500 in the passing department, but was able to, I thought, wrap it up well and settle as the game continued. Big 45-yard touchdown pass to Deebo Samuel in the fourth that pretty much clinched the win for them. But 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick for Trey Lance. Big for a rookie getting, I think, one of his first starts in his career. It's something to continue building on.
Okay, so we've got pretty much the entire Week 17 up to date. Is there anything I missed? Oh, Rams-Ravens. This was a tight one. Rams improving 12-4. Ravens still in the hunt at 8-8, but 20-19, tightest game of the day by the thinnest of margins, and on the road.
Yeah.
LA prevails over the Ravens.
We talk a lot about offense, but this was a defensive battle, and this was a defensive win for the Rams because it was really the play that comes out in my mind is first they went zone defense against the Ravens, which is risky enough, obviously, with the Ravens offense, and Mark Andrews having an excellent game in his own right. But I just remember Leonard Floyd and Aaron Donald having a huge third down sack on Huntley, the quarterback, filling in for Lamar Jackson today. It forced Baltimore to settle for a field goal and that 19-14 lead at the time, which set the stage for Stafford to hit Odell Beckham Jr. for the game-winning touchdown. That was big for them, especially a Ravens squad as well that scored 13 of those 19 points off turnovers. This was a great defensive slugfest.
I'll tell you what, okay, if an Odell Beckham Jr. with the problems that he's had, even this year, he comes up and makes a big play like that, that puts him in pretty good position for getting a job next year with somebody.
Yeah, he won't talk about guys who are most improved. He's definitely in that conversation. He's only played 4 or 5 weeks, but he's definitely stepped up from his time in Cleveland. And even, those injury woes he had in New York. Stayed healthy so far, has scored a touchdown in, I think, 5 of his last 6 contests. So he has helped open up what's been an already dynamic LA offense and makes them huge threats and incredible contenders for the Super Bowl.
Okay,
so the shocking thing to me, Matt, also is just the Ravens, real quickly. They're 8-8 so far and are outside looking in on the playoffs. I don't know too many folks who would have expected that with the season coming in.
Yeah, and we have 1 week left, and again, the musical chairs game, the music is about to stop, and you better find a place to sit, or you will be on the outside looking in, and you still have a bunch of teams that are trying to work their way into the playoff scenario. Now,